Hi everybody and welcome to Take a Deep Breath. Today's Breathcast is with Dave Florence. Dave runs a YouTube channel called The Evolution of Dave. I highly recommend you check it out. Links in the description below. Dave's got a really fascinating journey. Dave also discovered Wim Hof. He wasn't in the place, he wasn't happy with his life a few years ago, and through the power of breathwork, meditation, cold exposure and a load of other things, he's got a very interesting journey to share with you guys today, and a lot of practical things that we can implement straight away. This was a bit of a two-way podcast actually, because we're going to co-release this on Dave's channel and on Take a Deep Breath. So first time I've done something like that. So really great conversation. So sit back, relax and enjoy. Just a couple of quick messages before we get stuck into the Breathcast. Please like, subscribe and share. It helps spread the message of the community, helps get the message of breathwork out there, and it would be much appreciated if you could do that. And if you can afford a couple of quid, a couple of bucks, a couple of dollars over on Patreon, again link below, much appreciated, and a massive thank you to everybody that supported us to date. It's very appreciated. Okay, without further ado, let's get stuck into the podcast. Cheers. Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome to a co-release podcast between Take a Deep Breath and The Evolution of Dave. I'm going to introduce myself first of all. So my name's Mike Maher. I run Take a Deep Breath over on YouTube. We started that channel, probably about a year and a half ago, and it just covers all different types of breath work routines. I trained with Wim Hof in 2016 in Poland, and then since then went on to become a breathwork instructor with Patrick McEwen on the Oxygen Advantage. And very recently now, I've started doing podcast interviews with some really interesting guests. I'm really excited to sit down and co-release this with David. But that's me. I've got a bit of a corporate background. I'm sure we'll get into all this sort of stuff over the next hour. But really excited to meet you all and say hello. And I'll shut up and hand over to David.
That is quite an intro. my problem is that whenever I do an intro, I have to keep going, just stop rambling.
Me too.
I've done this a few times, so I'll keep it as short as I possibly can. So the back end of 2017, I had a bit of a wake-up call. It was quite literally a bang to the head. This was after a sort of a night of heavy drinking. I was found by the side of the road and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this caused me to think and act differently. I wanted to be I know this is a cliche, but I wanted to be a better version of myself. So the very next day I thought, first of all, this is not how a husband and father should act. Therefore, I need to wake myself up from this kind of reverie. At the same time, I was watching YouTube videos on Wim Hof, the Wim Hof Method, and therefore I just jumped straight into a cold shower, literally. And I didn't want to transition. I didn't want to go from warm to cold. I wanted the slap in the face of a cold. And it was midwinter. It was obviously winter time as well. And that really did cause me to when I refer to it as a wake-up call, it really was that. I woke up. 3 months later, I thought, after 3 months of doing the Wim Hof Method, doing the breathing and getting excited by the whole thing and feeling those neurochemical rushes, I then thought, I'm going to chronicle my journey. And that's when I created Evolution of Dave, because I genuinely thought it's time for me to not evolve in the truest sense, but I wanted to enhance my physical and mental health. And that became my journey. And it was only really meant to be just, this is what I'm now doing. I'm trying this. If it works, great. And if it doesn't, but I'll let you know how it works. And now it's kind of blossomed into lots of different things that we can discuss.
Yeah.
This chat.
Fantastic. It reminds me a lot of, are you a fan of Gary Vee? Have you seen much Gary Vaynerchuk stuff? And he always talks about, chronicling your journey. And I think he quoted something like, imagine if Jeff Bezos of Amazon, who I know not everyone's the biggest fan of, but imagine he'd been YouTubing from day one. It would be so fascinating to go back and see people's journey. Yeah. And I love that about people on YouTube. We kind of share that journey of where we're going. And if we make a mistake, that's okay.
Yeah.
More
the better.
More, yeah, exactly, because people learn from that, and I think it's an easy way to connect with people as well, especially when something's not gone right. So you had that wake up, you did the cold shower. I'm just really interested. What happened next? What was the next sort of days and weeks look like after that?
I actually said this on another channel. So in the 14th century, there were a group of Catholics called the Flagellants, and they were known for obviously literally whipping themselves with flails in order to, it was a way of absolving themselves of sins.
Right.
And in a way, that's kind of the psychology. I'm not religious, but at the same time, that was the psychology behind what I was doing. And very quickly, I moved from the cold shower in-house to the hose, which I've done every day since. So, over 3 years now of using the hose. Sorry, just under 3 years, using the hose in the garden every day throughout the winter, throughout the summer. It sounds a little bit masochistic, doesn't it? In the sense that I wanted to, it's not the same kind of thing as I wanted pain, but I wanted that, shaking me up feeling. So, but very quickly, I started to realize the benefits of the breath work. That was the really interesting thing. And because when you start delving into, as you know, when you start delving into breath work, you go from that thought process of how can just breathing in a different way change your psychology as well as your physiology. Then you start practicing and experimenting with it. And initially you get those incredible highs.
Yes.
With the Wim Hof Method, those highs are nuts, and they don't last, obviously, because your body adapts. Like everything that we do, you and I do, you go through an adaptation phase. The body goes, oh, what's this? Crikey, I better just pump you full of dopamine and serotonin and yada, 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 all these neurochemicals. And that's why you get these really big highs. Then it goes, okay, I see you're doing it every day, so let's just simmer that down a little bit and you adapt. It's the same with intermittent fasting. I've gone through that process where you lose loads of weight initially, and you're thinking, should I really be doing this? And then your body adapts, it changes, and then you start regaining the weight again, and it works. So yeah, the breath work, I think I've ever since delving into the cold, I've always loved it. But it's the breath work which has been the catalyst to much of the changes. So I don't know whether you've experienced this, Mike, but I went from being somebody that was letting life direct me rather than me direct life. I wasn't ambitious, I wasn't driven. I had my own business, but it was more owning a business out of necessity because I got sacked from another company. I was a recruitment consultant. Right. And myself and my business partner at the time thought, I don't think anybody else is going to want to employ us, so let's just set up on our own. It was that. It wasn't I'm an entrepreneur, let's create a business. It was more we may as well just do it on our own kind of thing. Yeah. So it was never ambition driven, it wasn't passion driven, it was just necessity more than anything else. And we did that for a good 10-15 years. So before all that, I didn't really have a huge amount of drive. I was a happy chap, pretty positive and looking for life experiences, but that was it. I wasn't in the same state that I am now. And I now realize, after doing more and more research, so over the last 3 years, like you, I've continued building on my knowledge, learning different protocols, practices, but not just breath work, everything to do with enhancing my health. But on the breath work, I now realize, especially after doing Soma breath and the stuff that I've learned through them, that the intermittent hypoxia bit of both the Wim Hof method, of both Soma breath, really does create some very interesting things up here. I genuinely believe it helps to awaken dormant parts of the brain. So whether or not, I don't know whether you've experienced any of this kind of stuff. That's certainly one.
Yeah. So I'll just share a little bit about my journey, because I think it'll build a bit of context. So yeah. I had a 15-year marriage that ended around 2016. And just before that, I was going through a bit of a transitional period of starting to get into podcasts and that sort of thing. And I think there's a YouTube channel, which I highly recommend people check out. I don't think they post anymore, but it's called The Journey of Purpose, or TJOP. And on there, they would take different audio clips of different people. And there was one that I was absolutely obsessed with, and it was Steve Jobs and Alan Watts. And they put together a couple of audio clips of those guys talking with some beautiful music, some beautiful visuals. And that just kind of woke me to, this is some really interesting stuff that's being said there. And then I got really into that channel. One video came out, or I found a video about this guy called Joe Rogan. Who the heck? No idea.
Who's that?
Never watched Fear Factor. This is 2000,
Mm.
2015, maybe something like that. So he's, he's big, but he's not big in kind of pop culture terms. He's not on Saturday Night Live and all that sort of stuff being referenced. So I listened to this one clip where he's talking about society and how we go to work. So we can afford a pair of shoes we couldn't afford last week, and we can afford a bigger TV, and we can afford a shiny car. And then I'm really, really butchering it. And he's like, and you do your 40 hours and you get home and you're just like this. And he goes, that's your life. That's your life. And you've sold your life to live in a cubicle. And something just hit me. I was like, I've done 15 years in a corporation. And, it wasn't all bad. I really learned so much. I'm really grateful for that. But at the same time, I was like, I spent 15 years in this corporation. And I have sold my life to do this, and I had a very closed mind to what else was out there. I always had a feeling there might be some other cool stuff out there, but never allowed myself to get into it. So anyway, I'm listening to this Joe Rogan. I then find the podcast that is referenced. I think it's podcast 382, where I think a guest didn't turn up. So it's just him talking for like 2 hours. So he's again, I think we're at 1505 now. So you can just imagine how long ago it was. So I'm listening to this podcast and I'm thinking, this guy's very confident. And is he just a guy sitting in the bedroom just talking? I don't know. And then you get into it and I start listening to these other guests. And then from that, I thought, oh, this jiu-jitsu thing sounds interesting. I might give that a whirl. And I signed up for the jiu-jitsu class. And then I've been doing that intermittently now for about 4 years. Listening. I could talk all day about the stuff I've learned through him and Audible and all that stuff. But I then heard about this guy called Wim Hof. And he kept talking about him. Oh, it's like Wim Hof. And I was like, the name just sounds so cool. But I never listened to the podcast. It was probably another year before I listened to it. And then I think I actually watched that podcast. And this is the episode 763, something like that, when Wim's first on. And he's got the wolf t-shirt on. And I think he does the breathing technique there with Joe. And I was like, whoa, this is really exciting. This is crazy. Is it real? And I'm by this point, but I should also say I am terrified of the cold. I used to go on holiday with the family to Canary Islands, and there are two pools. One was a chlorine pool, one was a salt pool. I could never get in the salt pool because it wasn't heated in bloody, Gran Canaria. It was too cold for me. Jump in, jump out. And I had this story in my head that I just couldn't go into the cold. I'm one of those people that just can't handle the cold, and that's just the way it is, and that's okay. So anyway, marriage has kind of come into that point where we're going our separate ways. Sold the house, had a little bit of money. I just thought, do you know what? I think he does courses. And I Googled, there's some spaces left in Poland in like 2 months' time. I'm going to do it. And I just had this kind of, whatever you want to call it, this feeling like I have to go and do this course. And booked the flights, flew out to Poland, took a bus to Prague, met with these 60 other people. Haven't done anything like this since school, where you're in a big group of strangers. So suddenly I'm at this kind of heightened sense of, I need to be on, I need to be making conversation, I need to be friendly, I need to be charming, I need to, bond with these people and be stuck with them for, the next 5-6 days. I need to, I can't just sit here quiet. But everybody was in that state. So suddenly you're just making friends everywhere. We get on this bus, I think it's 2 or 3 hours to the foothills of Śnieżka, which is near the Czech border in Poland. So we're crossing back into the Polish side. And just 5-6 days. Wim comes in late that night. He's really exhausted. He's been filming some sort of commercial for a Japanese, I think, chewing gum company. And he's, shouts at us a little bit. We're going to have a great time together, guys. And he says good night and goes to bed. And then just over that week, just things started to change. I started to do the breathing on day one. Not much, just a little bit to acclimate to it. We went into some frozen lakes, did some press ups outside in the cold. It's bloody freezing in Poland in November as well, especially down near the Czech-Prague border. And from there, that first night, and I've told this story many times, but we go to Wim's house. And it's this thing where it's a little log cabin with a sauna, and outside is a very slippery slope with an ice bath that they've built. Almost by hand, it looks like, is this thing, and there's no lights out there. There's no UK health and safety going on. There's just this ice bath. And it's like, right, let's get a few of you in there. And I made this conscious decision. I'm going to be the first one in, because if I don't, I'll chicken out. A long story short, I did it once. I was so tense, hated it. I went into the sauna and everyone was going in and out, and they're like, I've been in 4 times, I've been in 5 times, I've been in 7 times. How many times have you been in? I've been in once. And I just went through this phase of, I think I need to go home. This isn't for me. I can't do this. I'm not for the cold. This is ridiculous. Look at all these bloody athletes around me. And then just something happened where I had this conversation. I'm really out of my comfort zone. I don't know these people. I don't know what's going on with this cold. It's terrifying. And I was like, I'm going to do it one more time. Even if it's awful, I'll do it one more time. And if I don't like it, I can pack my bags, go to the airport and call it a day. And the second time I went in and something happened where I went from this to this and I let the blood flow and just breathing nice and gently. And it was like having a warm bath. I know, as ridiculous as that sounds, there was ice everywhere. It's freezing. And I almost couldn't, I feel like I died that night a little bit and I was reborn. It's so cheesy to say that, but I was reborn in this way of, I'm somebody that can handle the cold. I can somebody that can handle the ice. And I think I did like 3 or 4 minutes. Maybe not even as much as that the first time, but by about the 5th or 6th time, I was doing the 5 minutes and back in the sauna and back in. And that was really the mind shift for me. And from that moment, many other things happened. I then went across Spain and done El Camino. So I took a sabbatical and walked across Spain. Again, would not think I'm the sort of person that has the physiology to be able to do that. Had this story that I'm not strong enough to do those sort of things with a backpack for 35 days. And then I went to Tony Robbins in 2018. And then a week later, less than a week later, I quit my job, that 15-year corporate job. I handed my notes in and did this visualization exercise, which is funny because I'm in the middle of the Tony Robbins UPW right now. He's doing a virtual one. So it's lovely to go back into that. I was in that last night and back in it again today. And it's been a lovely refresher, but you do this visualization exercise and you ask yourself these questions. If I don't change some of the things I don't like about myself right now, how will that manifest in 5 years? What will be the things that I'm thinking about in 5 years, and where will I be if I don't change? And then you say, what will that look like in 10 years? And it's everyone's crying all around you. Everyone's screaming because he really gets you to kind of get those emotions up, old Tony. And he goes, right, what are the things you need to change? And it just kept coming up. You need to leave your job and you need to go traveling because you've been saying that since you were 19 and now you're 35 and you haven't done it and you need to do it. So within a week, went to my boss. I think I was a bit teary. I was like, I need to quit. I need to go traveling. And we had a lovely conversation. And I gave her 6 months notice, which I think was part of me trying to get out of it. And I didn't. I had so much resistance. So anybody that's thinking of doing something like going traveling, you will come across incredible resistance in your own mind going, this is a bad decision. You shouldn't do this. Cool. Anyway, I did all of that. I got through those 6 months, said goodbye to everybody that I worked with for 15 years. Got a one-way ticket with my girlfriend out of the country. Didn't really plan where we were going to end up. Sold the car, sold the sofa, sold the, everything we had really. We didn't have a bed. We were sleeping on my brother's floor before we flew out. 35, nothing's left, just a pot of savings, and we don't know when we're coming back. And from there, we just traveled. I was doing some stuff on YouTube, but really just for me, the breathing exercises I initially put on there was just so I could practice and I didn't have to have my phone, didn't have to have a recording on my phone. I could just find my YouTube anywhere. And then people started to view. And I thought, maybe I should do a couple more breathing exercises. And then I thought, well, why don't I look at other things other than Wim Hof? And then started looking at the pranayamas. Then I went to Bali, spent a month in Bali learning some of these pranayamas, spent time with different yoga instructors and learning different breathing techniques there as well. Did a load of Kundalini, which is bloody incredible. Really enjoyed the Kundalini. A lot of breathing with yoga and twisting. Did a cacao ceremony there as well, which is, again, really interesting, bizarre experience with a cup of hot chocolate, but I'm really doing it a disservice because it's a wonderful couple of hours ceremony where you kind of freestyle dancing and celebrating cacao and all these things. And anyway, I get to this point now where I release a video once a week. I try and find a different breathing technique. I try and learn all about it. I practice it. I'll mix things up on the channel so the guys get an experience of something that's maybe a bit heavy and then something that's a bit soft. Box breathing, for example, is something I absolutely adore. 5-7-8 technique as well. And these are things I practice because they help me sleep at night and help me relax. And very, very recently, I'll hand back over in a second because I appreciate I am now rambling, but I wanted to learn the science of breathing because I remember I feel like I've learned the experience of it. I'm feeling it and I know something's going on here, but I can't really demonstrate what's going on scientifically. And I think I said to you before the podcast started, I very much say I'm a learner and I'm a student of breathwork. And I think anybody that says they know it all, I'm always a bit wary of that because we're all learning all the time. And I came across Patrick McKeown on, I think, London Real. And Patrick McKeown wrote The Oxygen Advantage. Fantastic book. It's very science heavy. And I thought, this is interesting. And He does a breathwork course, and it's not ridiculously expensive either, and it's an instructor's course. And I thought, you know what? I'm in lockdown. This is a great opportunity to learn this. And it was a 6-week course, something like that, with Patrick on Zoom, 3 nights a week. And he's just going through the science, the methods, the different breathing exercises, the importance of nasal breathing. And at the end of it, you go through a huge test. It's something like, I think, 100 questions, 88 questions. And they're really science heavy as well. And you can't just Google the answers. You have to look through your notes, remember what you've learned, have a crack at it. And I think there's sometimes 6 or 7 answers, and some of them are very similar as well. So you really need to understand a bit more about the science. So I did all of that. And that's really got me where I am today. And then very, very recently, I've just started this podcast. So interviewing people like yourself. We've had Patrick on there. We had Neeraj from Soma, which I think we'll talk about in a second. But it's been this experience. If I just go back to the Wim Hof thing, that moment sitting in the sauna, that's something clicked where it's like, you can go out your comfort zone and you're not going to die. You're going to be okay. And it's just that thing that clicked for me. Probably similar to the experience that happened with you. Like, enough's enough. You are where you are today, but actually there's so much more out there. And that is the story of kind of where I have got to today, and the comfort zone metaphor, I guess.
But isn't that funny, because lots of people will be listening to this at a point where we were previously. And they'll be looking for inspiration, and they might get some inspiration from this, but they might watch something else, and then something else, then something else. Then suddenly something will click, something will resonate, and it will slap them in the face, and it will make them do one thing. And hopefully that one thing will be, if it's going to make them change, it will be getting, typically, as David Goggins often talks about, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes.
That's the thing that causes change and causes you to act and think differently. And that's what's happened, obviously, to both of us. For you, or sat in the sauna thinking, there's no way I'm going to go back in the cold. But you made yourself do it for whatever reason, doesn't matter what it is. But by doing that, you then had this experience where I was talking to a couple of Wim Hof instructors at Primal Being, based in Sherborne, lovely people. And Kat, the lady, she was saying that what's really interesting is that quite often men get into the ice baths. Men being men, we often physicalize how we deal with things. And so a lot of these men were, muscular men, etc. And so therefore they really try to grit and, use their, the physical part of their body to deal with the cold. Yeah, I can last longer than you, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And she said what was interesting is obviously the women were much better at just going, okay, fine, let's just relax into it. And therefore, I'm generalizing, but, she was saying that the women at that point were much better at dealing with the cold because they switched on quicker to just relaxing and going with the flow. And that's what happened to you, isn't it? That second time you went in there, you thought, right, whatever it is, again, who knows what that trigger was, but something happened that caused you to relax. And you can apply that mindset, I think, to much of good things. So I'm just switching. It seemed to be going out of focus, wasn't it? You can apply that, I think, that rule to much of how you conduct your life. Because the more you obviously get into the flow, the more you relax into things, the better they are likely to go. And the great thing about all the tools that we now have, and we will, and I love what you said there about a student of learning. For me, I'm exactly the same. The whole point of Evolution of Dave is that it's a journey. And I'm quite often saying to the camera, at no point do I ever think I will say to you, I've got it all figured out. I definitely do not have it all figured out. And I see this as a lifelong journey. And that's the exciting thing about it. I don't want to figure it all out. I don't want to get to a point where I go, hey, there you go. I've reached that samadhi, that sort of Indian pranayamic state. I don't want to get to that point. I want to keep learning and figuring stuff out through mistakes, or not mistakes, learning experiences.
Yes.
So yeah, we all have these tools, and these tools now we keep collecting. I call them my armory, and I can turn to them in certain situations. And going back to that calm state that we all want to be in certain situations, I can, I've got tools now that I can just go, right, I'm going to use this, and that will put me in this state in order to deal with that thing, whatever that thing might be. And I would imagine you're the same. Now that you've done the oxygen advantage, when I read that, I think I read What Doesn't Kill Us by Scott Carney first, all about Wim Hof. Then I read The Oxygen Advantage. And then I started telling people on my YouTube channel about The Oxygen Advantage, saying you need to read both. Because quite often there's conflicting information and contradictory information between the Wim Hof and The Oxygen Advantage.
Yeah.
But that's why you need to read both. And people kept asking me questions on the comments, but surely you shouldn't read this over this because this one tells you to do this. And Patrick talks about the fact that you can't breathe through your mouth and blah, blah, blah. And I said, exactly.
Yeah.
Read it all. Nobody's going to tell you exactly what the right answers are. You need to read all of it to make your own decision about what's right for you. But we know that we should. I mean, you've spoken to James and James Nestor of Breath, and we know how important this conch is. There's a reason why this is stuck on the end of our nose. Some have got bigger ones than others, but at the end of the day, this is here for a reason. Even though we have, as James has put it, we've dis-evolved, haven't we, over the years?
Yeah.
Interesting stuff, though, eh?
It's this toolkit is very interesting because for me, it's almost instinctive now. It's like, right, I need to. So just before this podcast, I'm like, right, I'm going to stand up. I'm going to get some good posture. I'm going to take a few breaths, and I'm going to get myself in that mode because I want to be on camera. I want to come across nice. I want to do good service for you and for the viewers. So I have that toolkit. And before bed, it's like, right, I want to get out of my head. I'm not going to stare at my phone. I'm going to just take some really slow breaths in through the nose, out through the nose. I'm going to focus on the warm air coming in, the cooler air coming in, and the slightly warmer air coming out. There's almost a resistance sometimes to do that, I've noticed. But the minute I start to put myself in that mode and go, no, brain, it's time for you now to be quiet, it really doesn't take me very long. And I've always been somebody that struggles to sleep. So that's been a lovely find for me.
You take your mouth up?
I've done it a couple of times. Yeah, I did it and I had more moisture, but I think I've almost got the problem where I clench too much at night. So I think I've almost got the problem where I probably need to work out more ways to relax because I don't, and again, this is so ridiculous to say, I don't think I sleep with my mouth open, but then probably we all think that. So I have done it a couple of times actually. What about yourself? Do you do that very often?
Well, I did it after reading The Oxygen Advantage. And then I only did it for a short period of time, and I arrogantly thought, that's it, that's me sorted. I no longer breathe through my mouth at night. Then I had a bout of hay fever this year because I now do a part-time gardening job, and this puts me in the front line with some allergens, only for a short period of time in the year. My hay fever previously dissipated, so I didn't really notice it so much. But because this year I'm at the firing line, I had a couple of weeks of really severe sort of blocked nose, blah, blah, blah. So at night, clearly I was breathing through my mouth. And I then thought, oh, yeah, I can really sense a big difference. And I realize now that I'm probably doing it more often than I thought. So since then, I've been taping it up. The main thing that I've noticed is I definitely have a calmer sleep, which again makes sense. By breathing through this, you're getting a much more parasympathetic derived breathing pattern, and you've probably told your listeners about this before. But sympathetic obviously is all to do with the fight-flight reactions in your autonomic nervous system, and the parasympathetic is all to do with calm, digest, rest, etc. And so the other thing I noticed is that my dreams have changed. And oddly, it's not like my dreams have become calm. They've become more lucid, more vivid, but also quite adventurous. I seem to be going on these adventurous journeys now that I take my mouth up. So,
very cool.
What is interesting is that, so I did try, by the way, the hermetically sealed approach. I think James talks about this, where you get the tape and you literally tape it all the way across. And what I did find on that one night that I did it, I woke up. I didn't feel panicked, but I think I woke up in a panic because my brain had said, you're being suffocated.
Right.
So, and I very quickly sort of took it off. Now I just get a small strip straight down the middle. I think occasionally what happens is you get this, every now and again, for some reason that message is not going to the brain, so you sort of have a little breathe throughout the side of your mouth, because my wife has told me. But for the most part, I think I am predominantly breathing through my conch.
I need to go back and have another crack at that. I think, yeah, because I think the way James Nestor said was a Charlie Chaplin size mustache here, because I've obviously got a bit of a beard going on, so it doesn't stick to all this. But yeah, it just leaves a little bit of hair, so you can still have a little bit of a conversation with your partner when you've got it on, which is obviously good. So I just want to talk about something a second. You said about the conflicts in breathing, because I think that's such an interesting point. And when I was doing the instructor training for Oxygen Advantage, I was constantly asking questions, probably doing Patrick's head in. I was like, what's the difference between this and Wim Hof? And you know, what's going on with Wim Hof? And a lot of the time he was going, you know what, we don't know sometimes. And he said this actually on the interview I did with him, was breathwork people don't tend to be very rich people. And studies cost a lot of money, and there just isn't that many studies. There are some, but there are not that many compared to all the other things that are out there right now. And it's starting to pick up pace. So I think it's really interesting to see where we're going to be in like another decade, because with things like James Nestor's breath and all these sort of things, you know, what we're doing.
Well, I think what's interesting about that is I think Patrick's changed his stance slightly. I've noticed anyway, because initially both he and a few other people, when they come from very specific breath control, breath understanding backgrounds, they have a tendency, some people, to down other techniques.
Yes.
I've even noticed it with some people with Soma breath. I'm not going to mention names, not Niraj, but I have noticed it with some other instructors that, wrongly in my opinion, will state, you only need to do this type of breath work. And I don't think we're there yet. We're not at a point yet where we can confidently say 100% only do this. We might well find, as you say, in 10 years' time, that everybody that's been doing the Wim Hof Method is now suffering some poor health. I don't think that's the case because, as we know, Wim Hof Method is derived from Tumo and Pranayama, kind of, you know, the combination of both. Those are ancient techniques. If people were suffering ill health because of those, we would have figured that out by now. So we know that I'm pretty confident that they are perfectly fine to do. But it's like anything in life. Everything should be done in kind of small doses. There's some on. I remember I get asked some silly questions, and I've seen these questions as well posed on the Wim Hof Facebook group. I've heard this one guy, he wrote saying, "Oh wow, this Wim Hof Method breathing is amazing. Today I did it 25 times. Do you think that's okay?" And I thought, do I really want to grace that with an answer? But other people did grace it with an answer. And in my mind, I was thinking, come on, for goodness sake, you know, by the very fact that you're asking that question, you do that 25 times, of course, it's not a good thing to do. But in the same way, you drink a bottle of whiskey, of course, it's not a good thing to do.
Yes.
You know, many forms of toxicity in our body can, if consumed too much, cause harm. In small doses are actually quite good for you, as it's a bit like stress, isn't it? And that's physiological stress in the form of exercise, physical stress, or it's physiological stress in terms of the breath work, because at the end of the day, it is causing a stress on the body. But in small doses, I think, and I say I think because I don't think anybody knows 100%, I think it is good for you because it causes this adaptation. And Patrick talks about that a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think you're right. 10 years' time, everybody will know about much of the stuff that we're talking about now. And I also think many people will be doing some of the really simple practices as a part of their daily routine. You know, there'll be people in the corporate world, and I'm starting to put more of this stuff out actually to my old network. There'll be people in the corporate world having a big meeting in 5 minutes, thinking, oh, blimey, I am whacked. I'm drained. Oh, I know, I'll do this.
Yeah.
And they'll do a technique before they go into the meeting. You know, I think this will become part of our language.
Yes, I hope so. It's
to use these techniques.
I tried to do some of this after, I think it was after Tony Robbins, because Tony Robbins has got the priming technique. I don't know if you come across this, where it's like, and that just gets you in a different state, you know, very quickly. And there's no breath holds; it's just in through the nose. I think it's out through the mouth. I got my team to do that when I was in my old corporate job, and they just thought I'd gone crazy. It's like, some stuff might come out of your nose, and that's okay. And when Tony says that, that's fine. When you're in a boardroom saying that, it's but you know, they had a crack at it. So I think for me, going back to what you're saying about these different breathing techniques, and you know, these people that the men that would kind of sit through the ice. So, I very much was trying to do that. And for me, the big breathing was the thing for me. Let's do the Wim Hof breathing. Let's take loads of air in. And there's been a shift this year, which has been very much, let's just get used to walking around with your mouth closed. Let's go for a bike ride with your mouth closed. Let's sleep with your mouth closed. All these different things. I was going up. I'm in Leicestershire, and we've got Old John, which is this lovely kind of, I think it's a national park, beautiful park, quite hilly. Yes, strange breathing going up the hill, but with the mouth closed. I'm very conscious. And I'm saying to my girlfriend, you need to close your mouth. I think I'm becoming one of those people that's like constantly as soon as I see a mouth breathe, I'm like, oh, I'm very conscious of that. But I'm very much now about the gentle breathing, about the nasal breathing, and I will still do some of those bigger breathing techniques, but they're not my daily practice by any stretch. You were talking about hay fever. We were in a water park quite close to here about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, when we had the heat wave, and the pollen was going absolutely crazy. Really stuffy nose, blew it, didn't sort it out, and I thought, I'm going to try the breath hold technique that Patrick does, which is a normal breath in, a normal breath out. You hold your nose and just shake your head. So there I am walking through this water park, looking like a plonker, doing that, and I think I did 2 or 3, and then suddenly just everything opened up, and it wasn't 100% perfect, but the percentage increase from where I was 40 seconds ago was significant enough to go, oh, okay, I can breathe normally again through my nose, and it's done something now, because the pollen was kind of irritating and closing it up. So I'm very much now about balance, and I'm very much about the gentle breathing, almost more now than the big stuff. But what I'm very excited to ask you and talk to you about is Soma, because I know you've had Neeraj on your podcast recently. I had him on Friday, and he'll go out in a couple of weeks, I think, on the channel. And I wasn't expecting it. He goes, let's do a breathing exercise towards the end of the interview. I was like, okay. And I've never done anything Soma related, so I'm really interested to pick your brains in a second. But as a man that's been doing, Wim Hof breathing for 4 years on and off, I thought, I've experienced all the visuals and all that sort of stuff. It doesn't really happen to me anymore. And we did this 22-minute breathing exercise, in through the nose, out through the mouth, 2 in, 2 out. Great audio. I was on camera, so I was conscious I was on camera. I was like, I don't know how deep I can get with this. And he also said to me, are you the sort of person that passes out easily? And that worried me a bit, because I was thinking, I don't think so. But I was just, because, I think you should be lying down, but I was in a chair and I had all my kids around me. Anyway, 22 minutes of this exercise.
That would have made for some good viewing.
I probably did think that. I thought, if I just, pass out, at least there's something I can put online. But luckily that didn't happen. At no point did I even feel like I was getting close to passing out. I've done some pretty holotropic-esque stuff. So it wasn't like that. It was a lovely practice, but I went deeper than I've gone in 4 years.
Interesting.
And I got into something, and I was so like, I was having these visuals, and they were going crazy, and I could see, like a bit of an eye shape. And I've had these things before, but 4 years ago in Poland with a group of 20 people. I've never had those experiences alone in front of my computer, listening to some music and stuff. And so that's just really excited me, and I really need to get more into Soma. So talk to me about Soma, talk to me about how you got involved in it, what you've learned. I'd just love to kind of hear your version of what's going on with all this sort of stuff, because it's super exciting.
Soma breath, really interesting. So what had I been doing? So been doing obviously the Wim Hof since 2017. Loved it, always have, still do it. And how did I come across it? It must have been on YouTube that I came across Soma breath. It must be. It's funny, isn't it? Because we consume all this information, and we quite often don't really know where it's coming from sometimes. But and the reason why I was lured into it initially, because I was thinking, well, I've studied various different things. I studied to be a clinical hypnotherapist. I've learned NLP along the way. I've been practicing these different methods in yoga, breathwork, calisthenics, all these different things. And this Soma breath, what I really liked was that there was a video that obviously had these fractals, this very specific breathing, not too dissimilar to the Wim Hof Method. And at the same time, within the music that was going on in the background, there was isochronic tones, which if you don't know, I mean, I'm sure you do, Mike, but isochronic tones are a bit like binaural beats. Really, the only difference is binaural beats you have to use with headphones because you've got the two different sound frequencies that then create another frequency in your brain that enact brainwave patterns, delta, theta, etc. Isochronic tones do exactly the same thing, but you just don't need headphones. And Niraj has obviously put isochronic tones behind much of his music, and you can hear it sometimes you can't. So I love the idea of having this very specific music that is almost trance-like and ambient in nature, which I've always liked that kind of music anyway, along with this guided breath work. That for me, I thought, well, this is really interesting. That combines some things that I'm really interested in anyway. And when I tried it, like you, I experienced something different. The Wim Hof method is brilliant because in the first 3 months you have these amazing experiences, but as we discussed before, your body changes and you get less of that neurochemical rush. The Soma breath then created some of that again, that caused me to cause some changes in the brain, which I loved. And I realized then that there was a course that you could do. And I'm really glad I did it because the great thing about the course is that there's a lot of the scientific understanding that goes into it. And it really just helped feed more of the knowledge that I now have around breath work. What's interesting is that Soma breath obviously isn't to do with the cold. It's not to do, there is some yoga in it, but it is very much more to do with the breath work as the main part of the program. But it opens up a whole load of different breathing techniques, not only just the differences in rhythm. So Soma breath, the great thing about it is that, and I think part of the Wim Hof method is going down this route now by the sounds of it, but the Soma breath is very specific in that it has you breathing in a rhythm. And there's something about breathing in a very specific rhythm. In other words, 2 seconds in, 4 seconds out, or 2 seconds in, 2 seconds out, or 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out. When you breathe in a very specific rhythm, that creates this coherence in the body. It helps to balance the autonomic nervous system. The Wim Hof method, again, it's changed, I think. Initially was very much more about it almost being a much more of an inhale through whatever orifice you fancy. There was no kind of protocol, I don't think, initially, was there, around you must do it through your nose. If you want to do it through your mouth, you can do it through your mouth. Yes. And it was much more of a kind of much more of a Viking-like sort of, not aggressive, but sort of power breath. And that's what's so good about it. And that's what's so amazing about it, because those really big, deep inhales and exhales, they of course create this physiological response. Soma breath is a much calmer way of doing that exact same technique, and you get the rhythmic element of it, which makes sense to me. You know, it makes sense that it's going to help balance everything that's going on in the system. I did a chat recently, and at the end there was a Q&A. It was a Zoom conversation with some people, and at the end there was a Q&A, and there was this one guy that every now and again I got a sense, because I could see his face, that whenever I was sort of touching on the scientific stuff around this, I could see his head nodding up and down. And I also mentioned this doctor called Dr. BM Hegde, who do check him out if you've not heard of him. He's an amazing guy. I think he's in his 80s, maybe 90s, Indian doctor, Western medical trained, but very much promotes Ayurvedic, pranayama, and these other kind of methods. And he's amazing. Anyway, I mentioned him in the conversation. This guy nodded his head as if to say, yeah, I know who he is. Anyway, when he then posed a couple of questions at the end, the way he asked these questions, I thought, oh, crikey, I've got to be on my A game. He knows something from a medical perspective. Anyway, he asked me this one specific question. He said, do you think, David, that you can control your autonomic nervous system? And I thought, oh, and now I'm being tested. I feel like I should plug into Patrick's knowledge. But I then said, okay, and I answered it as best as I could. And I said, I think what you can do is balance your autonomic nervous system. As we now know, and the Wim Hof method, and Wim Hof has proven this, the stuff that we didn't think that we could control, the autonomic nervous system, we now know that we can affect it. We can change its state. So I answered it that way. And it turned out he is a British surgeon.
Right.
So the fact that he was involved in the chat, I thought that's amazing in the first instance, because it means that people in the NHS are waking up to these ideas. But the fact that he's also a surgeon, in other words, he's going to have kind of a very specific background. The fact that he's interested in it, I thought was amazing. So yeah, what we now know, certainly with the Soma breath, there's a really good article that people should look up on PubMed called, I think it's something like The Benefits of Intermittent Hypoxia, A Matter of Dose. It's a really, really good article that pulls together much of the research that has been done on intermittent hypoxia.
Okay.
And you know this, Mike, but for those watching it, the intermittent hypoxia bit comes from the exhale breath hold part. So it's changing the oxygen and the CO2 levels in your body. And therefore the research that's gone on has looked at the physiological changes. And so anyway, this is what Soma breath is all about. It's very much focused around the science behind this, what we know at the moment. And like you said earlier, I think in 10 years' time, we're going to know a lot more about this. But also Soma breath has these other kind of very quick breath methods, very much derived from pranayama. So people from sort of a specific yogic background may know about this stuff. But let's say, for example, you've had a really big meal, then you can simply do an inhale and exhale, making sure the exhale is much longer than the inhale. Do that a few times, and that helps to digest your food.
Ooh, that's interesting.
So it's a really good thing to do. It's a bit like Tim Ferriss talking about doing stall squats before you have a big meal. You're going around Granny's house, and she's going to feed you royally. And it's going to be tough on your stomach. You do a few stall squats, in other words, literally squats in the loo, whilst nobody else is watching. You'll get the blood flow rushing around your body. You'll be able to digest your food much better. So, it's these sort of little techniques like this that I think are amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, long ramble. But anyway, that's what Soma breath is all about. It's having these, it's adding to your armory. If you do the course, you get these extra tools that are breathwork focused that will help you deal with certain situations, be it an overindulgence of food, be it anxiety, stress, requiring more energy, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think for me, already obsessed with breath work, I naively thought I'm getting to understand the different modalities, and then it kind of took me off my feet. I just wasn't expecting such an intense experience, and one that I found so sustainable as well. And what I mean by that is with the Wim Hof breathing, I've always found it a bit of a chore to be going through the mouth. And I can do it. And I always found about, round 3, round 2 or 3 of 3, I'm really, and I'm really like having to consciously make sure I take as much air as I can in. And it really becomes a chore. And with this, it just wasn't a chore. It was, and I think part of it as well is the psychology of knowing you should be using your nose more. And I thought, I just felt instinctively more comfortable because I was using the nose. So I was like, this is good because I'm using the nose. The music got me into something else as well. So I'm just super excited to kind of delve more down the Soma
and the great thing about it is that it's guided meditation. So I've put 3, people can check them out if they want. We were allowed as Soma breath instructors, I've now qualified, we've been allowed to do our own daily dose meditations. So the great thing about Soma breath is that, yes, you've got the isochronic tones. Yes, you've got this really lovely music. I mean, Niraj is a music producer. He produces loads of music and it's really good stuff. So anyway, he's pumping loads out on his channel. So you've got this amazing music that is already it uplifts you. You've got the isochronic tones that changes your brainwave state. Then you've got the breathing. And then on top of that, as a way of combining it all, you've got guided meditation.
Yeah.
So a lot of people find that, you talk to them about meditation, you talk to them about breath work, they go, I haven't got any time in the day to do that rubbish. Even though inwardly, they're thinking, this is probably going to be good for me. They genuinely don't think they've got time to do it. Well, here's a blooming good reason to do the Soma breath. You combine meditation with breathing. So you get 2 rolled into 1.
Yes.
So do it in the morning. You can't fail to feel happy afterwards, honestly.
Yeah.
You just, as you say, I think it's very easy these days for us to be distracted. It's very easy for us to get turned off by stuff that we know is good for us. And if you haven't figured out how to turn that habit into a positive habit that makes you feel good, that you don't need to think of beforehand, and in the book Atomic Habits, he talks about this a lot, that sometimes you need to habit stack, which is where you take a really good habit that you do naturally without thinking, subconsciously, and you add another habit that you really want to do but you at the moment think is a chore. You stack it together one after the other and you tell yourself that you're going to do it. That's how you kind of...
Oh, I need to check that book out. I've heard a few people mention Atomic Habits.
Worth it. Yeah. Definitely worth it. I mean, honestly, I could bore you silly with all the amount of books that I've read over the last 3 years. And that's the other thing that's changed, by the way. I developed very quickly this insatiable appetite for learning. I believe that has come from the intermittent hypoxia. There are studies that have shown that spatial memory, in particular, changes through regular intermittent hypoxia.
Wow. And do you read or do you listen, or both?
Listen mostly. And initially it was reading. So this is good. You're not going to be able to see that because, of course, it's the one going round.
I can see it, yeah.
That is The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. That is an amazing book. Anyway, so I've got a whole load of here that just sit there. But now that I do my little part-time gardening job, which is meditative in nature anyway,
yes,
you get your hands in the earth, so it's really good. You get that grounding thing. But also, if there are times when I'm thinking, okay, well, I've done my meditative bit. It's been lovely weeding that garden, but now I want to start learning, then I'll just chuck an Audible on. And whilst I'm gardening, I've also got...
Fantastic. And you're in nature, you're getting vitamin D.
Yeah.
You're getting fresh. You know, I saw, I think it was only a couple of days ago on the BBC News website, they'd linked to a computer visualization of what we're going to look like in 25 years if we continue to work from home. And you can probably already pitch the image. Yeah. Very obese, terrible posture. People have lost their hair. And all of that, I kind of thought, scary, but I try and get out anyway, so I'm not too worried about that. But it was this thing around the eyes. The eyes were all black, and they were just destroyed. And I realised that I still have a corporate job, got a new corporate job. I love this job. And I'll do sort of, I do have to say that. I feel very blessed though, because just a quick, probably no one's watching it from my work, I'm sure, but I left my old corporate job before I went travelling. And I thought, I'll never get a job as good as this. I really love this job. And in hindsight, I thought it was okay, that job, but I'm really grateful now, especially with the home working. I've got this wonderful role where I'm doing a lot of project work and I get a lot of time to think about things. Anyway, I digress. So I spend 8 or 9 hours in front of my computer for work. And then I'll normally spend at least another 1 or 2 doing something to do with YouTube or something along that line. So sometimes I'm on that computer for 10 hours a day. And in the past, when I'm in the office, I have my meetings. The meetings are face to face. I'll talk to the person next to me. I'll go to the coffee machine. I'll go downstairs and have a meeting. I'll go upstairs and have a meeting. I'll go out on my lunch break. And so my eyes are constantly adapting to all these different things. Whereas now, every blinking meeting is on that screen. And I realized it was like a lightning bolt. It's like, oh no, you are not looking after your eyes because you're spending 10 hours a day in this fixed position. Sometimes even lunch, I think, what, it's lunchtime now. Let's see what's going on with YouTube while I'm eating my lunch. Because me and my partner, she has different lunch breaks to me. So I think from that moment, it's like, right, again, it's another wake-up call. I need to get out more. So I'm going out on my lunch breaks and all that stuff.
Well, interestingly, Niraj has created something called Chair Guru.
Yes.
Which is a Chrome extension. And what's lovely about it is it prompts you every hour, and it has this little chime that goes Chair Guru. So it's with this sort of Indian accent.
Brilliant.
And it gets you to do different things. It could be just a simple, stretch.
Yes.
It could be, So one of the things I've started doing, I'm bringing stuff into the corporate setting because again, I've got this big network from my previous career, and I know through doing all this stuff that what you're experiencing is now, I think, going to be the next really big health issue that people are going to face. There's lots of people because of lockdown that are quite happy now working from home. They've gotten used to the routine. They want to continue doing it. And they will very easily get sucked into this world. we know already that too much tech is a bad idea, clearly. And the only way I can deal with technology now is by having my gardening job. I can't do 5 days, 6 days doing this. I can't do it anymore. So I need this other job in order to counter the negative effects of all this technology. I mean, you've done brilliantly with your glasses, the blue light glasses. That makes a big difference, clearly.
People quickly. Yeah, highly recommend these guys. If you're
Yeah.
looking for a way to get your sleep, don't just go for the blue light blockers, go for the blue and green, and you'll get something like that. You do look a bit of a plonker, but they do work. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, and also, there's another thing, by the way. When you start delving into all this stuff, this rabbit hole of health protocols, you very quickly stop caring about what you look like. In the village, people know me for wandering around in my shorts and t-shirt throughout the year, even in the snow.
Yeah.
Deliberately, obviously, and I don't do it for the whole day, but when I'm walking the dog, it's shorts and t-shirt. They also know me for talking about it because I evangelize about having cold showers in the garden and doing all the kind of weird stuff. When you get to that point of not caring, it's a lovely feeling. I genuinely do not care at all what people think about what I wear, look like, etc., etc. And it's a lovely feeling. Where were we going before that? Before I got excitable?
I was just going to say, I think you look very well put together. I went to the bank the other day and I had a shirt on, shorts, long socks, and I've got these Vivo barefoot shoes. I don't know if you've seen those; they're fantastic. But again, I thought, I do still care a little bit, but I do go to the gym with these on from time to time. And,
well, I'm 10 years older than you, so once you get to my age, honestly, you stop caring.
I am caring less and less. Yeah, we were talking about the gardening job, weren't we? And that's what I was going to say actually. So after this BBC article, and I thought about this thing around 10 hours of screen time, awful. And then what do you do after you finish work and you finish your screen time? You watch bloody TV as well. So I think Ben Greenfield talks a lot about, the technology goes off and they'll do something as a family, they'll play guitar, they'll go in the garden. And when I first heard that, I wasn't ready to hear that. I was like, no, because screens are awesome, Facebook's awesome, YouTube's awesome. And now I'm getting into that stage of, no, real life is better. I need to find more time to look at a human and all that sort of stuff. But no, I actually said to Nina, my girlfriend, I said, I think I need to find a gardening job. So it's so funny you said that. I said, something about being outside, digging, using your body, socializing a bit with your customers. So it's so funny to hear you say, because I actually thinking the same thing, which is that would be a wonderful job if you could supplement that with what you do, with the rest of the time. That's a win.
And you don't need experience. I went to this company and I said, do not look at me as a gardener. I have no experience whatsoever. If my parents knew I'm coming to an interview for a gardening job, they would laugh because they are gardeners.
Right.
I have never had green fingers. I do not like it, or rather did not like it.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I do like it.
Yeah.
And they were willing to take me on because I think they saw me as somebody that could do all the physical stuff that they can't be bothered to do. In other words, whenever they say, right, that pile of mud needs to be moved, I go, yep, that's my job. Or these hedges need to be cut. Yep, that's my job.
Yeah.
I want the physical exercise. I want to, sometimes I will weed a person's garden and the poor person in the house must think this guy's a nutcase because I will deliberately go into a press up position so that deliberately I'm putting all my stress on that left hand whilst I weed, and I will move again deliberately because I like all these calisthenic stuff and then I'll use my left hand for weeding again in a press up position. I can't do it for too long, but therefore I know that I'm acting on my core strength. If I'm using a hedge trimmer, a petrol hedge trimmer, it's got a bit of weight to it. So therefore I'll start squatting. So I'll squat down, move up, because these hedges are normally pretty tall, and then I'll switch arms. And so I'm constantly making sure I'm getting this full body workout because that's what I want.
Yes. Fantastic.
So I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah.
There's going to be somebody out there that's willing to employ you, even if you don't have any experience.
I have very little. We've been growing some basil and some coriander on the window ledges.
There you go.
Some of it's done all right. So I think on my CV, I can say I've not killed some plants. So
yeah, exactly.
Oh, brilliant. So if we think about how we promote each other, then, so how can my audience find you?
Right. So my YouTube channel, much smaller than yours, is Evolution.
It's doing really well though, Dave. I've been really impressed with your journey actually, because I started following you about 6 months ago, and it's wonderful to see your audience. You've got a really dedicated following, I must say. So very impressed.
Thank you. Yeah, they're a nice bunch. And much of them have, so there's Evolution of Dave, the YouTube channel, and then much of them have then joined my Facebook group, which is called the Tribe of Evolutionaries. And the lovely thing about that is You've got lots of people in there from all walks of life, different knowledge backgrounds, all coming together. A lot of Facebook groups I find can be quite negative initially, or people just slag each other off. This one at the moment, is still hugely positive. People just helping each other out. You know, somebody will say, guys, I've got a problem with this. Have you tried this? But it's all to do with enhancing your physical and mental health. So there's lots of ideas. It's a really lovely, friendly group. So it's worth, I think, people joining that if they would like. And LinkedIn as well, I'm starting to do a little bit more on there because I am, like I said, bringing much of what I now do into a corporate setting. I think there's a real value to that. I mean, we've just discussed how much the stuff that we now do would be valuable to people that sit in front of a computer all day.
Yes.
So on LinkedIn, just look for David Florence. And I do have an Instagram profile, evolution_of_Dave. I don't do it as much because I'm not a big fan of Instagram anymore. You know, I put stuff on there every now and again, but I don't know, I'm kind of going off it. But anyway, people can join me on there if they like. Do you like the way I promote my stuff? It's very self-deprecating. Anyway, yeah, there we go.
I too have got not a great take a deep breath Instagram account. It's got a few pictures of me on there with holding a pair of lungs and stuff. So I keep thinking what would be the best thing to add value on Instagram. So I haven't quite figured that out yet.
Yeah.
But for me,
getting naked probably.
Well, maybe I don't think people want to see that. So on YouTube, you can find me under Take a Deep Breath. It's all capital
Which is
letters.
amazing. Let's face it, that is an amazing channel. You've done brilliantly with that.
Thank you. Really, it's been a wonderful journey, and I feel very honoured and privileged to run that channel. I think we're almost at 50,000 subscribers now, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I think we're almost hitting 7 million views now. So it's wonderful. So if you aren't on there already and you want to go over and subscribe, that would be much appreciated. We do have a Facebook group. Again, I need to do some more stuff on there. So if you just, it's a page, I should say. So maybe we need to look at a group there as well. But what I will do is I will do a plug for a couple of the other YouTube channels I've got, which are quite new. So I am not a hypnotherapist, but my best friend is a hypnotherapist. And we run together Hypnotherapy Unleashed. So that's on YouTube. We're very new. I think we're about 350 subscribers at the moment. We've got about 15 videos on there, and we post a new video every week. And there's stuff on there for stress, depression, how to stop smoking, how to stop drinking. He's a fantastic hypnotherapist. He lives down south in Devon, Cornwall-esque.
What's his name?
His name is Lester Savage. I think you're friends on Facebook, actually, because when I connected with you, I think you were already connected, maybe, I think. So Lester runs Hypnotherapy Unleashed, and I do all the techie stuff. So my background, I've got a degree in film production, so I'm the guy that does the editing and all that sort of stuff. So we've got that. So if you're into that sort of stuff, please look at that. And I've just recently started Take a Deep Snooze, a play on Take a Deep Breath. So if you type that in, you'll find a little sheep icon. And what that is, that's all white noise videos on YouTube. So people that are struggling to sleep or want to study, or you've got a new baby, or you've got some tinnitus, there's stuff on there with rain. There's some stuff where I'm in Leicestershire and we've got the water park just down the road, and it was just chucked it down the rain a little while ago. So I got the camera out and the audio equipment, and you've just got sort of 10 hours of the rain hitting the balcony, and a squirrel runs by the balcony. So that's quite nice. There's a lot of natural stuff on there. So if you can check those out, that'd be wonderful. So yeah, take a deep breath, take a deep snooze, and Hypnotherapy Unleashed.
If you are a film producer, wouldn't it be great if we got a group of people together in woodland, in the round, and you and I take people through a breathwork ceremony?
Ooh, I love that idea.
And we film it.
Yes.
And there will be some panning shots. There will be some focus shots on the person guiding the ceremony. There'll be this amazing music in the background. There'll be the sound effects of people breathing. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that make a great video?
Let's do it. And we can do it socially distanced as well, can't we, if we do it outside? Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's pick that up offline and see how we can make that happen. And if you're interested in doing something like that, because I'm Leicestershire, whereabouts are you?
Bath.
Okay, so maybe we can pick somewhere in the middle, and figure something out. That'd be a great idea. Okay, yeah, let's. So yes, if you're interested in doing that, drop us a comment or an email. And yeah, let's see if we can figure out a way to make that happen in the UK. That'd be wonderful. Fantastic. All right. Well, Dave, it's been lovely talking to you. I'm
Really
glad
nice.
we finally got to do this after I think it was about November we first spoke, and let's do something like this again in the near
I think
future.
we should. I love your journey, by the way. Well done.
You too. Yeah. Same. You know, give each other a nice virtual pat on the back. I think,
exactly.
Cracking job.
I can feel it already.
Yeah. Lovely. Well, thank you so much, and
thank you.
I'll end the recording there. And guys, thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.
TTFN.